Anniversary Gift. Chapter 1. Diane Hartley was arranging cheese cubes into a perfect pyramid when her son called to say his wife had vanished. She speared a cube with a toothpick, satisfied by the tiny puncture. "Did you check the spa? You know how Miranda loves to disappear for a massage when there's actual work to be done." "Mom, I'm serious." Trevor's voice cracked in that way it used to when he was 7 and had broken something expensive. "I woke up this morning, and she was gone. Her phone's here, her car's here, her purse is here. She's just not." Diane looked at the 67 cheese pyramids arranged across her dining room table. The anniversary party started in 4 hours. She'd invited 103 people to celebrate 5 years of her son's marriage to a woman who, in Diane's professional opinion, smiled too much and talked too little about her past. "Have you called the police?" "They say I have to wait 24 hours. Mom, what if something happened to her?" Diane felt a shameful flicker of something that might have been hope, quickly suppressed. "I'm coming over." She hung up and stared at the cheese. 5 years ago, she'd tried to talk Trevor out of this wedding. Miranda had appeared in their lives like a beautiful, mysterious rash, sudden, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. No family at the wedding, except a distant aunt who left during cocktail hour. No college friends, no embarrassing stories from childhood, just Miranda, with her perfect skin and imperfect explanations. Diane grabbed her keys and headed for the door, leaving the cheese pyramids to slowly sweat in the late morning sun. Trevor and Miranda lived in the kind of modern house that looked like it was constantly auditioning for a magazine spread, all glass and sharp angles and furniture that seemed to apologize for taking up space. Diane had never felt comfortable here, which she suspected was the point. Trevor met her at the door looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. His hair stood up in awkward tufts, and he was wearing one black sock and one navy blue. "Tell me everything," Diane said, pushing past him into the aggressively minimalist living room. "I got home late last night from the office, around midnight. She was already asleep, or I thought she was asleep. This morning I woke up around 8 and she wasn't in bed. I figured she was making breakfast, but..." He gestured helplessly at the kitchen, which was spotless and empty. "Her coffee cup is still in the cabinet. She never misses her coffee." "Did you fight yesterday?" "No. I mean, not really. She seemed quiet at dinner, but that's normal for Miranda lately." He ran his hands through his hair, making it worse. "She's been distant the past few weeks. Distracted." Diane's investigative instincts, honed by 20 years of true crime podcasts and 3 failed attempts at writing a mystery novel, kicked into gear. "Show me the bedroom." The bedroom was obscenely tidy, like a hotel room staged for guests who would never arrive. The bed was made with hospital corners. Nothing on the nightstands except matching lamps and a book about French gardening that looked like it had never been opened. "Does this look normal to you?" Diane asked. Trevor blinked. "What do you mean?" "The bed. It's made." "Did you make it?" "No, I got up and came to find her." Diane pulled back the duvet. The sheets underneath were smooth, undisturbed, tucked in with mathematical precision. "Trevor, this bed hasn't been slept in." Her son stared at the bed like it was a puzzle written in a language he'd never studied. "But I went to sleep. She was right there." "Was she?" Diane moved to Miranda's closet and pulled it open. Rows of clothes hung in color-coordinated order. Everything looked present and accounted for. Too present. Too accounted for. She turned back to Trevor. "When's the last time you actually saw your wife conscious and speaking?" Trevor's face went pale. "Yesterday morning, before I left for work. And you came home at midnight, she was asleep, and this morning she was gone." Diane pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my book club. Carol's son is a private investigator. We need to identify the core trigger for this anxiety, not just the symptoms. How did that sudden realization make you feel, specifically? And what 3 actionable, quantifiable steps are you planning to commit to this week to address it?" And wondered what he'd done to make his wife disappear on their anniversary. "It means," she said carefully, "that people don't vanish without reason. And the first 48 hours are critical. So we're going to find her ourselves, and we're going to hope like hell that she wants to be found." Trevor opened his mouth to respond when they both heard it, A phone buzzing somewhere in the house. Not Miranda's phone, which Trevor had already checked. A different phone. A secret phone. The buzzing came from inside the wall. Chapter 2. Trevor stared at the wall like it had betrayed him personally. Is that Laura? Is there a phone in our wall? Diane was already moving, pressing her ear against the pristine white drywall, tracking the sound. It came from behind the full-length mirror in the corner, the expensive one Miranda had insisted on installing last year because the light is better here. Help me move this. Together they shifted the mirror aside. Behind it, someone had cut a neat rectangular hole in the drywall and covered it with a magnetic panel painted to match the wall. Diane pulled it away to reveal a shallow cavity containing a burner phone, still buzzing, and a leather journal. What the hell? Trevor reached for the phone, but Diane smacked his hand away. Don't. Fingerprints. She was absolutely making this up as she went along, but it sounded authoritative. Using a tissue, she picked up the phone and looked at the screen. One new message from a contact labeled only. R. Time's up. You have until midnight or I tell him everything. Tell me what? Trevor's voice had climbed into a register Diane hadn't heard since he was 13. Who is R? What is happening? Diane ignored him and opened the journal, flipping through pages of Miranda's handwriting, small, precise, angry, names, dates, amounts of money, and at the top of every page the same phrase repeated like a prayer or a curse. Document everything. Mom, what does it say? Before Diane could answer, the front door crashed open. They both jumped. Heavy footsteps echoed through the house, multiple people moving with purpose. Trevor Hartley? A woman's voice, sharp with authority. Trevor and Diane exchanged a look of pure panic. Diane shoved the phone and journal into her purse just as two police officers rounded the corner into the bedroom. The woman in front was short, stocky, and looked like she'd been a police detective since the Bronze Age. Her nameplate read, Detective Sandra Mills. Her partner, younger and nervous, hovered behind her like an anxious ghost. Mr. Hartley, I'm Detective Mills. We got a call about a missing person? Yes, but I didn't. I thought I had to wait 24 hours? You do, unless someone else reports them missing first. Mills' eyes swept the room, cataloging everything. Your wife's sister called us 40 minutes ago, said she'd been trying to reach Miranda all morning and that you have a history. A history of what? Diane interjected. I'm Trevor's mother, Diane Hartley. And I don't appreciate the implication, Mrs. Hartley. Mills turned her attention to Diane with the enthusiasm of someone who just spotted gum on her shoe. Your son's wife is missing. Her sister claims there have been previous incidents of controlling behavior, and our first visit to this house finds you what, helping him clean up? We're not cleaning up anything. We're trying to find her. By hiding evidence behind mirrors? Diane's blood froze. Mills pointed to the magnetic panel lying on the floor, the exposed cavity in the wall. That's not, we just found that, Trevor stammered. Right. Mills nodded to her partner. Jenkins, get a warrant. I want this whole house processed. Mr. Hartley, you're going to need to come down to the station to answer some questions. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But the day is young. Mills smiled without warmth. Tell me, Mr. Buck. Hartley, what were you doing between 8 p.m. and midnight last night? I was at work. I'm a financial analyst at Morrison & Gould. There are security cameras, timestamps on my computer. Good. We'll check all of that. Mills moved closer, invading Trevor's space. But here's what's bothering me. Your wife disappears on your anniversary. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. Just gone, like she planned it. Or like someone who lives here made it look like she planned it. Diane's mind raced. The mysterious text, the journal full of numbers, Miranda's sister who had never been mentioned in 5 years of marriage, and Trevor, her son, standing there with mismatched socks and guilt written all over his face. Detective, Diane said, making a decision that might ruin everything? I think you should know that Miranda has been having an affair. 3 faces turned to her in shock. Trevor's betrayed, Mills skeptical, Jenkins suddenly interested. And you know this how? Mills asked. Because I've been following her. The lie came out smooth as silk for the past month. I had my suspicions, so I hired someone to watch her. She's been meeting a man at the Riverside Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Room 4112. It was complete fabrication, but it gave them something else to investigate. Something that pointed away from Trevor, and it bought them time to figure out what was actually in that journal. Mills studied Diane for a long moment. You just happened to have your daughter-in-law followed. I didn't trust her. I thought she was after my son's money. Diane straightened her spine, channeling every judgmental mother-in-law stereotype she could muster. And clearly, I was right to be suspicious. She's been lying about something. We'll look into it. Mills didn't sound convinced. But Mr. Hartley, you're still coming with us. And Mrs. Hartley, don't leave town. I'm going to want to talk to you again very soon. As the police led Trevor out, he shot Diane a look that was equal parts terror and confusion. She touched her purse where the journal lay hidden and gave him the tiniest nod. They had until midnight to figure out what Miranda was running from. Diane just hoped her son wasn't the answer. Chapter 3. Diane sat in her car outside Trevor and Miranda's house, the stolen journal open on her lap, and contemplated how quickly one's life could become an episode of a show she'd judge other people for watching. The journal was damning. Page after page of financial transactions, all carefully documented with dates, amounts, and terse annotations. March 15, $8,500, consulting fee. No consultation occurred. April 3, $12,000. Wire transfer to Cayman account, not 4472. April 29, $6,800, cash withdrawal. Told Trevor it was for charity gala. Every entry was in Miranda's handwriting. Every entry involved money being moved, hidden, or outright stolen, and every entry was from Trevor's accounts. "Oh, Miranda," Diane whispered. "What were you doing?" Her phone rang. Carol from book club. "Diane, I heard about Miranda. My son Daniel says he can meet you in 20 minutes at Brewster's Coffee. He's expensive, but he's good. Tell him I'll pay whatever he charges. And Carol? Tell him to be discreet. The police are already involved." "Police? Oh my God, do they think Trevor?" "Bye, Carol." Diane hung up and started the car. She needed answers, and she needed them before Detective Mills decided Trevor looked better as a suspect than as a victim. Daniel Chen looked nothing like his mother. Where Carol was soft and chatty, Daniel was sharp and silent. He listened to Diane's story without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a tablet that probably cost more than Diane's first car. "So let me get this straight," he said when she'd finished. "Your daughter-in-law has been embezzling from your son, documenting her own crimes in a hidden journal, and has now disappeared on her anniversary after receiving a threatening text from someone called R. And you lied to the police about her having an affair to buy time. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad. It's spectacularly bad." But Daniel was smiling slightly, which Diane chose to interpret as a good sign. The affair story won't hold up. The hotel will have no record of her. Mills will know you lied, probably by this afternoon. Then we work fast. Can you find out who R is? Maybe. I'll need the phone. He held out his hand. Diane reluctantly passed over the burner phone. What about the sister? The one who called the police? That's the interesting part. Daniel pulled up something on his tablet. I already did some preliminary research. Miranda Hartley, née Miranda Cole, has no sister. No siblings at all. Parents died in a car accident when she was 19. Only living relative is an aunt in Oregon who has dementia. The coffee shop suddenly felt too cold. Then who called the police? Excellent question. Daniel's fingers flew across his screen. Give me the detective's name again? Mills. Sandra Mills. Daniel frowned at whatever he was seeing. There is no Detective Sandra Mills in the Municipal Police Department, or the County Sheriff's Office, or the State Police. Diane's cheese pyramid suddenly felt very far away. What? The woman who came to your son's house this morning, she's not a cop. Daniel turned the tablet to show Diane a database of police personnel. There's a Lieutenant Sandra Miller in traffic enforcement, and a Detective Sam Mills in narcotics, but no Sandra Mills in missing persons or anywhere else. But she had a badge, a uniform, a partner, named Jenkins, right? Let me check. More typing. No Jenkins in that precinct either. The implications hit Diane like a collapsing cheese pyramid. They took Trevor, Fake cops took my son, and we just let them. Don't panic yet. Let me make some calls. Daniel stood. Where did they say they were taking him? The station. They said downtown station. Stay here. Do not go home. Do not call Trevor's phone. If these people have him, we don't want to spook them. Daniel headed for the door, then paused. Mrs. Hartley? Whatever your daughter-in-law was involved in, it's bigger than embezzlement. People don't fake being police over some stolen money. After he left, Diane sat alone with her cold coffee and tried to make sense of the senseless. Miranda had been stealing from Trevor, that much was clear. But the journal wasn't just a record of theft, it was evidence. Miranda had been documenting crimes, gathering proof. She opened the journal again, flipping to the last entry, dated 2 days ago. Can't wait any longer. R is getting impatient. Trevor is in danger and doesn't even know it. If anything happens to me, the backup drive is with DH. She'll know what to do. She's smarter than she pretends. DH. Diane Hartley. Backup drive? Diane said aloud. What backup drive? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We have your son. Miranda stole something that belongs to us. Return it by midnight, or Trevor takes her place permanently. Check your mailbox at home. Diane's hands shook as she ran to her car. The drive home took 7 minutes that felt like 7 hours. She pulled into her driveway and sprinted to the mailbox. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. Trevor, tied to a chair in an empty room, very much alive but very much terrified. And behind him, barely visible in the shadow, stood a figure Diane recognized from the family photos on Miranda's side of the house. The aunt from Oregon, the one who supposedly had dementia. The aunt who was apparently very good at pretending. Chapter 4. Diane drove back to Brewster's Coffee doing 40 in a 25 zone, which for her was basically Fast and Furious territory. Her phone rang twice. Carol, then her sister Judith, and she ignored both. The photograph of Trevor sat on the passenger seat like an accusation. Daniel was waiting in his car when she pulled up. She barely had time to park before he was knocking on her window. Get in, he said. We need to talk somewhere more private. She followed him to a storage facility 3 blocks away. He led her to Unit 237, unlocked it, and ushered her inside. The unit was set up like a tiny office. Desk, computer equipment, filing cabinets, a small refrigerator, and disturbingly, a cot in the corner. You work here? I live here sometimes, when cases get complicated. He locked the door behind them. Show me what you got. Diane handed him the photo and the threatening text. Daniel studied both with professional calm that made Diane want to scream. The aunt isn't demented, he finally said. I noticed. Her name is Ruth Cole. She's Miranda's mother's sister, and she's very much in possession of all her faculties. Daniel pulled up a file on his computer. Also, she's been arrested 3 times for fraud, once for identity theft, and once for something the charges don't specify because it was sealed by a federal court. Federal? Yeah, that's the interesting part. Ruth Cole spent 18 months in federal prison 5 years ago. Got out 3 months before Miranda married your son. Diane's brain was working overtime, connecting dots she didn't want to connect. What if Miranda wasn't stealing from Trevor? What if she was stealing for him? Or because of him? Explain. The journal documents everything. Dates, amounts, methods. That's not how you hide embezzlement, that's how you prove it. What if someone was forcing her to steal, and she was gathering evidence to protect herself? Daniel nodded slowly. Or to protect Trevor. The last entry mentioned he was in danger. And she left a message saying backup drive is with DH. That's me. But I don't have any drive. You sure? Think. Did Miranda ever give you anything? Even something small? Diane mentally cataloged 5 years of awkward Christmas presents and birthday gifts. Miranda had always been thoughtful in that careful, distant way. Nice candles, expensive chocolates, a silk scarf Diane had only worn once. The scarf, she said suddenly. Last Christmas, she gave me this beautiful silk scarf in a fancy box. She said it was from a boutique in Paris, but the box felt too heavy. I thought maybe she'd left the price tag on, but you never checked. I just shoved it in my closet. Diane was already pulling out her keys. It's at my house. We need to go get it. No. Daniel grabbed her arm. Think about it. They know about the drive. They sent you to your mailbox, which means they're watching your house. If we go there now, we lead them straight to it. Then what do? They have Trevor. The text said midnight. That's 8 hours from now. We get the drive another way. Daniel was already typing on his phone. My mom has a key to your house, right? For when you travel? Yes, but I'm calling her now. She'll go get the scarf, bring it here. They're watching for you, not for a 63-year-old woman in a Prius. 20 minutes later, Carol arrived with the scarf box, breathless and excited in a way that suggested she was enjoying this far too much. This is just like Patricia Cornwell, she said, handing over the box. Diane, your life is so interesting now. Carol, my son has been kidnapped by fake police. I know, it's terrible, but also kind of thrilling. Carol caught Diane's expression. Right, sorry, not helpful. I'll just go. After Carol left, Daniel carefully opened the box. Nestled in tissue paper beneath the scarf was a small external hard drive. Got you? Daniel whispered. He connected it to his laptop. The drive contained one folder, Murrison and Gould Audit Trail. Diane's stomach dropped. That's Trevor's company. Daniel opened the folder. Inside were hundreds of files, bank statements, wire transfer records, internal memos, encrypted communication. He clicked on a file labeled Summary Doct. They read in silence for 3 minutes. Then Daniel sat back and said, Holy shit. That's not helpful. No, I mean holy shit in the technical sense. He turned the laptop toward her. Your son's company isn't just a financial analyst firm. It's a money laundering operation. Has been for at least 8 years. And Trevor what? According to these files, Trevor isn't a victim. He's the one running it. Diane felt the words but couldn't process them. Her son. Her sweet, slightly dim, mismatched socks son. A criminal. No, she said. No, Trevor is terrible with secrets. He cried when he accidentally killed the class hamster in 3rd grade. He told me about every bad test grade before I could find out from the school. He's not capable of... Read it yourself. Daniel pointed at the screen. She read, account numbers, shell companies, offshore transfers. And in every document, Trevor's name. Trevor's signature. Trevor's approvals. This is impossible, she whispered. The evidence says otherwise. And look at this. Daniel opened another file. Miranda started working at Morrison and Gould 4 months before she met Trevor. She was an internal auditor. She found the money laundering scheme, and instead of reporting it, she married him. Or he manipulated her into marrying him. Or Ruth forced her to do it. Or... Daniel stopped. There's a video file here, dated 5 years ago. You want to see it? Diane nodded, even though she absolutely didn't want to see it. The video showed a small office, clearly recorded on a hidden camera. Miranda sat across a desk from a man in his 50s, expensive suit, cold eyes. The audio was muffled but audible. You have 2 options, the man said. You can report what you found and end up in a very unfortunate accident. Or you can marry Trevor, keep your mouth shut, and we'll make sure you and your Aunt Ruth are very comfortable. Miranda's voice was barely a whisper. Why do you need me to marry him? Because Trevor is a liability. He thinks he's just a financial analyst. He thinks the company is legitimate. But eventually, he'll notice the irregularities. And when he does, we need someone close to him. Someone who can keep him in line. Someone who has as much to lose as we do. And if I refuse? The man smiled. We know about Omaha. We know what you and Ruth did. The fake charities, the elderly victims. 1 phone call, and you both go to prison for 15 years. Or you can marry a decent-looking man, live in a nice house, and keep quiet. The video ended. Diane stared at the blank screen. They blackmailed her into marrying Trevor. Yeah, and then forced her to help cover up the money laundering. But she was smarter than they thought. Daniel gestured at the hard drive. She documented everything, built a case, and when she had enough evidence, she ran. But Ruth is working with them now. The woman who came to the house pretending to be a detective probably works for Morrison and Gould, or whoever really runs the operation. Daniel checked his watch. We have 7 hours until midnight. We need to figure out what they really want. Diane's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Smart move sending your friend instead of coming yourself. But we still have Trevor, the drive for your son. Pier 17, Warehouse B, midnight. Come alone. If you bring the police, the real police this time, he dies. They're watching everything, Diane said. Yeah. Daniel stood. Which means we need a plan that they won't see coming. What kind of plan? Daniel smiled grimly. The kind where we give them exactly what they want, but not the way they're expecting. Chapter 5. Diane spent the next 3 hours learning to commit crimes from a private investigator in a storage unit, which wasn't how she'd imagined spending her Tuesday, but life was full of surprises. The key, Daniel explained while making what he called a dummy drive, is that they need to believe it's real long enough for us to get Trevor out. So we'll give them a drive that looks identical, with files that appear legitimate at first glance. And when they realize it's fake, we'll be long gone, hopefully. That's not reassuring. I'm a private investigator, not a miracle worker. Daniel finished his work and held up 2 identical external drives. Real one stays here in my safe. Fake one goes to the pier. You walk in, make the exchange, walk out with Trevor. Just like that. Just like that. Except for the part where they might shoot you. Diane had raised a son, survived 2 colonoscopies, and once defended her dissertation in front of a professor who hated her. She could handle this. Probably. What about Miranda? She asked. What about her? They took Trevor to get the drive, but Miranda is still missing. Where is she? Daniel shrugged. Maybe she's hiding. Maybe they have her too. Maybe she's don't say dead. I wasn't going to. You were thinking it. Yeah, I was thinking it. Daniel looked at her seriously. Mrs. Hartley, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that Miranda might not be alive. These people have killed before. That's heavily implied in the files. And if Miranda was the one who stole this evidence, she's alive, Diane said with more conviction than she felt. I know she is. How? Because the last entry in her journal said I'd know what to do with the drive, past tense. She already gave it to me. She had a plan. And Miranda doesn't strike me as someone who'd make plans without backup plans. Daniel considered this. Okay, let's say she's alive and hiding. Where would she go? Diane thought about her daughter-in-law, the woman she'd spent 5 years judging, dismissing, and fundamentally understanding me. Where would a woman with no family and no friends go when she was running for her life? Somewhere obvious, Diane said slowly. Somewhere so obvious that no one would think to look. That's not helpful. The anniversary party, at my house. She'd go where 100 people were supposed to be because chaos is the best hiding place. Diane checked her watch. The caterers are setting up at 5. That's in 1 hour. If Miranda is there, then you have a much bigger problem because your house is being watched. By whom? Ruth? The fake cops? We don't even know how many people are involved in this. Daniel pulled up traffic camera footage on his laptop. I've been monitoring your street since Carol left. There's a gray sedan parked 3 houses down. Been there since noon. 2 people inside. They're not very good at surveillance. How can you see that? I hacked into the neighborhood security camera system. Is that legal? Do you want to save your son or worry about my methods? Fair point. They watched the footage together. The gray sedan's occupant seemed bored, occasionally checking phones, once arguing about something that made the driver hit the dashboard. They're amateurs, Daniel said. Probably hired muscle. The real players are somewhere else. At the warehouse? Maybe. Or maybe they're wherever Miranda is. Daniel closed the laptop. Here's what we're going to do. You go to the pier at midnight like they asked. I'm going to your house to see if Miranda shows up. If she does, I'll get her somewhere safe and call you. And if she doesn't, then we hope the exchange goes smoothly and we get Trevor back alive. Diane nodded, trying to project confidence she absolutely didn't feel. Okay. I can do this. Mrs. Hartley? Yes? If this goes wrong, if anything feels off, run. Don't try to be a hero. Just run. What about Trevor? I'll figure something out, but a dead mother doesn't help anyone. At 5:47 p.m., Diane received a call from the catering company. Mrs. Hartley? We're at your house for the anniversary party set up, but there's already someone here. She says she's your daughter-in-law? And she's insisting we set up for the party even though we heard it was canceled? Diane's heart leaped. Don't cancel anything. Set up exactly as planned. I'll be there in 10 minutes. And tell Miranda to stay put. She grabbed the fake drive and her keys. Daniel caught her arm. They'll be watching. I know. But Miranda is at my house, very much alive, and apparently determined to throw an anniversary party for a marriage that was based on blackmail. I'm going. At least take this. Daniel handed her a small device that looked like a car key fob. GPS tracker. If something happens, I'll know where you are. Diane drove home with one eye on the road and one eye on the gray sedan, which followed her at a careful distance. When she pulled into her driveway, it parked in the same spot as before. Amateur hour indeed. The catering van blocked most of her front door, which gave her cover as she slipped inside. The house smelled like flowers and pastry and desperation. Miranda stood in the living room, surrounded by cheese pyramids, looking like she'd aged a decade in 24 hours. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her clothes were wrinkled, and when she saw Diane, she started crying. I'm so sorry, Miranda said. I'm so sorry. Diane did something she'd never done before. She hugged her daughter-in-law. We're getting Trevor back, but I need you to tell me everything. Right now. Miranda wiped her eyes and nodded. His name is Richard Morrison. He owns Morrison and Gould. 8 years ago, he needed a new money laundering operation because the feds were closing in on his old one, so he built a legitimate financial firm and hid the illegal operations inside it. And Trevor? Trevor was supposed to be the fall guy, the oblivious employee who'd take the blame if anything went wrong. But Trevor is actually good at his job, too good. He started noticing irregularities. So Morrison needed someone to manage him, to keep him distracted and compliant. You. Me. Ruth and I ran a charity scam in Omaha 3 years before. We got caught, made a deal with prosecutors. I was supposed to testify against Ruth, but then Morrison's people found me. They offered Ruth a deal, work with them, convince me to take this assignment, and we'd both walk free. So you married my son under duress. At first, yes. But then, Miranda's voice broke. Then I actually fell in love with him. And I couldn't let him go to prison for something he didn't know he was doing. So I started gathering evidence, built a case against Morrison, and 3 months ago I contacted the FBI. Diane felt the room tilt slightly. You're working with the FBI? Was working with them. Past tense. My handler was Agent Rebecca something, codename R. She was supposed to arrest Morrison this week. But yesterday she sent me that text saying time was up. I think Morrison got to her. I think he knows I've been gathering evidence. So you disappeared. I staged it to look like I'd run away. Thought it would buy time. But then Ruth called the police, or people pretending to be police, and everything accelerated. Miranda looked at Diane with red-rimmed eyes. I never meant for Trevor to get caught in this. I was trying to save him. Outside, a car door slammed. Then another. The caterers had finished unloading and were heading back to their van, which meant Diane and Miranda were now visible through the front windows, which meant the people in the gray sedan could see them. We need to leave, Diane said. Now. But Miranda was looking at something on her phone, her face going pale. It's too late. She turned the screen toward Diane. A text from an unknown number. We see you both. Change of plans. Bring Miranda and the drive to the pier. Midnight. If either of you runs, Trevor dies right now. Attached was a live video feed of Trevor, still tied to the chair, with a gun pressed to his head. Chapter 6. They sat in Diane's kitchen, surrounded by cheese pyramids and existential dread, and tried to figure out how to not die. We could call the real police, Diane said, and tell them what? That my FBI handler might be compromised, that fake cops kidnapped Trevor, and that we've been withholding evidence? Miranda shook her head. They'll arrest us first and investigate later. Trevor will be dead by the time they sort it out. Daniel could help. Who's Daniel? Private investigator. He's monitoring the house, or he was supposed to be. Diane checked her phone. No messages from Daniel, which was either good news or very bad news. Miranda stood and started pacing. Morrison is careful. He doesn't take risks. The fact that he's moved this fast means he's desperate. Someone must be closing in on him. Your FBI handler. Rebecca, if she's not compromised, if she's actually building a case, then why did she text me time's up? Why the threat? Miranda stopped pacing. Unless it wasn't a threat. Unless she was warning me. They looked at each other as the same realization hit them both. Time's up for Morrison, Diane said. Rebecca was telling you that the investigation is done, the arrests are happening. But Morrison doesn't know that. He thinks Rebecca is working for him now. He thinks he's still in control. Miranda pulled out the burner phone. I need to call her. They might be monitoring. I don't care anymore. Miranda dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Cole. Rebecca's voice was crisp, professional. It's me. Don't say my name, just listen. I'm listening. Morrison has my husband. He wants me in the evidence at Pier 17 at midnight. He thinks you're compromised. A long pause. Then, good, let him think that. We're raiding his office at 11:45 p.m. The warrant came through an hour ago. We've been waiting for him to make a move, and kidnapping is plenty. But we need that hard drive to make the charges stick. I have a copy. The original is hidden. Smart. Where are you now? Miranda looked at Diane. Someone who doesn't deserve to be in the middle of this. Get somewhere safe. Let us handle the extraction at the pier. No. Miranda's voice was firm. I'm bringing the drive. I'm finishing this. Cole, don't be stupid. 11:45, Morrison's office. Be ready. Miranda hung up. Diane stared at her daughter-in-law with new respect and significant concern. You're going to walk into a trap. No, I'm going to walk into a trap and have the FBI waiting to spring it. Big difference. Miranda managed a weak smile. Morrison wants the drive and he wants me. He gets both. Trevor goes free and then Rebecca's team moves in. It's actually a pretty good plan. It's a terrible plan. You have a better one? Diane considered. Yes. We don't go to the pier. We go to Morrison's office instead. Bring the evidence straight to the FBI while they're raiding it. Let Morrison show up at an empty warehouse. He'll kill Trevor the moment we don't show up. Not if Trevor isn't there. Miranda frowned. I don't understand. Daniel, Diane said, pulling out her phone. He's a private investigator. He can track GPS signals. If Trevor has his phone on him, they took his phone. His phone, yes, but Trevor has a Fitbit. He never takes it off. It tracks his location through his phone account. Miranda's eyes widened. We can find him. Diane was already calling Daniel. He answered on the first ring. Change of plans, she said. We need to find Trevor before midnight. Can you track a Fitbit? Theoretically, if I have the account credentials. Miranda? Diane looked at her daughter-in-law. I have them. We shared fitness app logins so we could do couples challenges. Miranda grabbed Diane's phone. I'm texting them to you now, Daniel. How fast can you locate him? Give me 5 minutes. They waited. Diane reorganized a cheese pyramid. Miranda checked her gun, which, oh yes, apparently she had a gun tucked into her waistband because this day kept getting better. You have a gun, Diane said flatly. FBI gave it to me 3 months ago. For protection. Does it work? I've practiced at the range. Never shot anyone, though. Well, if tonight goes badly, maybe you'll get the chance. They both laughed, slightly hysterically, until Diane's phone buzzed. Daniel. Got him. Industrial Park on Route 9, old textile factory, sending you the address now. But Diane, there are at least 4 heat signatures in that building. Trevor and 3 others. 3 guards, Miranda said. Morrison wouldn't use more than that. Too many people means too many witnesses. Can we get him out? I can? You're an accountant. I'm an FBI informant with trust issues and a gun. I can get your son out. Miranda checked her weapon again. But you need to promise me something. What? When this is over, if Trevor asks what I did, if he asks why I married him, Tell him it started as an assignment, but it became real. Tell him I loved him. Tell him I'm sorry. You'll tell him yourself. Diane. Miranda's voice was gentle. I'm probably not walking away from this. Yes, you are, because I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. My son. My operation. Diane grabbed her keys. Besides, you need someone to drive the getaway car. Miranda looked like she wanted to argue but didn't have time. Fine. But you stay in the car. Any shooting starts, you leave without me. Understood? Completely understood. And completely planning to ignore you. They made it to the industrial park at 10:37 p.m. The textile factory loomed against the night sky like a monument to bad decisions. Daniel was already there, parked in the shadows. Security cameras? Miranda asked. Disabled. You have maybe 20 minutes before they notice. Daniel handed her a small earpiece. I'll monitor from here. Any trouble, I call the FBI and the real cops. No cops until we have Trevor, Diane said. Diane? No. Cops. Until we have Trevor. Daniel sighed. You are as stubborn as your son. It's genetic. Miranda moved toward the building and Diane followed. They crept around the perimeter until they found a loading dock with a broken lock. Inside, the factory was a maze of abandoned machinery and shadows. Stay close, Miranda whispered. And if I say run, you run. They moved through the darkness, following the sound of voices toward the back of the building. Through a grimy window, they could see Trevor, still tied to a chair, looking exhausted but alive. 3 men stood around him, one older, expensive suit, cold eyes, Morrison. Your wife, Morrison was saying, has made a series of poor choices. The question is whether you knew about them. I don't know what you're talking about. Trevor's voice was hoarse but steady. The evidence she compiled, the FBI contact, the plan to destroy everything I've built. Morrison leaned in close. Did you know Trevor? Or are you really as oblivious as you seem? He doesn't know anything, a new voice said. Ruth Cole stepped out of the shadows, and Diane felt Miranda tense beside her. The boy is useless, Ruth continued. Miranda played him perfectly. He never suspected a thing. You should have seen him at their wedding. So proud, so in love. Didn't even question why a woman like her would want a man like him. Ruth, Morrison said carefully, why are you here? Because I'm tired of waiting. Tired of watching my niece pretend to be in love. Tired of this whole operation. Ruth pulled out a gun. You promised us protection, money, a new life. But Morrison, you're going down tonight. The FBI is coming, and I'm not going to prison again. So what's your play? Simple. I shoot Trevor. Blame it on you. Then I disappear with the evidence and sell it to the highest bidder. Maybe the FBI, maybe your competition. Haven't decided yet. You're bluffing. Ruth cocked the gun. Try me. Miranda burst through the door, her own gun raised. Drop it, Ruth. The room exploded into chaos. Morrison dove for cover. One of his guards pulled a weapon. Trevor shouted something incoherent. And Ruth, instead of dropping the gun, turned it toward Miranda. You always were too soft, Ruth said. Then Diane did something she'd never imagined she'd do. She grabbed a rusted metal pipe from the factory floor and hit Ruth Cole across the back of the head. Ruth went down hard. Everyone froze. Well, Morrison said into the silence, this is awkward. Then the FBI burst through every door at once, and Diane realized that Rebecca had apparently updated her timeline. Chapter 7. The FBI took statements until 3 a.m., which was approximately 2:59 a.m. longer than Diane wanted to spend in a decrepit textile factory explaining how she'd assaulted an accomplice to a money laundering scheme with a pipe. Self-defense, she kept saying. She was going to shoot my son. Actually, Rebecca pointed out, she was going to shoot your daughter-in-law. Your son was just in the room. Potato, potato. Trevor sat wrapped in a shock blanket, looking like someone had explained quantum physics to him in German. Miranda sat beside him, holding his hand, not saying anything. They hadn't spoken beyond the immediate, "Are you okay? Yes, are you? Yes, exchange." Morrison and his guards were already in federal custody. Ruth had regained consciousness and immediately demanded a lawyer, which suggested her head injury wasn't as serious as Diane had hoped. So let me get this straight, Rebecca said, reviewing her notes. Miranda Cole, you were blackmailed into marrying Trevor Hartley to keep tabs on him while Morrison and Gould laundered money through his accounts. You then became an FBI informant, gathered evidence for 3 months, and staged your own disappearance when you suspected your handler, me, was compromised. Yes, but I wasn't compromised. You just panicked. In my defense, your text said time's up and I'll tell him everything, which sounds pretty compromised. That text was about telling my supervisors we had enough evidence to move forward with arrests. Him was my boss, not Morrison. Miranda closed her eyes. I feel incredibly stupid. Don't. Your paranoia probably saved everyone's life. Morrison was getting desperate. If you hadn't disappeared, he might have moved against you directly. Rebecca looked at Trevor. Mr. Hartley, were you aware of the illegal activities at your company? No. Trevor's voice was small. I analyzed financial statements. I thought we were a legitimate firm. I'm not very observant. We noticed. Hey, Diane interjected. My son may be oblivious, but he's not criminal. Your investigation better reflect that. It will. Morrison kept Hartley deliberately in the dark, used him as a legitimate face for the operation while hiding the money laundering in accounts he didn't have access to. Rebecca closed her notebook. You're lucky, Mr. Hartley. You could have gone to prison for years without ever knowing what you did wrong. I feel lucky. Trevor's tone suggested he felt anything but. You can all go home, Rebecca said. We'll need formal statements tomorrow, but for now, you're free to leave. They walked to the parking lot in silence, Diane, Trevor, and Miranda, each processing the night's revelations in their own way. Daniel had already left, promising to send Diane his bill and to never speak of this again. When they reached Diane's car, Trevor finally spoke. Did you know? He looked at Miranda. When you married me. Did you love me, or was it just the job? Miranda took a breath. It started as a job. Ruth convinced me I had no choice. And for the first few months, I was just going through the motions, trying to keep my head down, gather evidence, and get out. And then you made me laugh. At that stupid company party where you accidentally wore your shirt inside out and didn't notice until someone pointed it out at the end of the night. You were so embarrassed, but you laughed at yourself. And I thought, this man is genuinely kind. Trevor's eyes were wet. That doesn't answer my question. I fell in love with you, Trevor, somewhere between the inside-out shirt and the time you spent 3 hours helping me build that IKEA bookshelf even though you hate IKEA. I fell in love with you, and it terrified me because it made everything so much more complicated. You could have told me. I tried 12 times. But how do you tell someone that your entire relationship started as a lie? That their mother was right to suspect me? Miranda glanced at Diane. That everything they believed about their life was wrong? You tell them anyway, Trevor said quietly. Because that's what love is. Honesty, even when it hurts. I'm so sorry. They stood in the parking lot of an abandoned textile factory at 3 a.m., and Diane watched her son make a decision. She could see it happening, the internal calculation, the weighing of hurt against hope. I need time, Trevor finally said. I need to process all of this. But Miranda, I don't hate you. I'm angry and confused and feel incredibly stupid, but I don't hate you. That's fair. More than fair, actually. Trevor managed a weak smile. You saved my life tonight. You brought my mom, to rescue me from armed criminals. That's pretty impressive. I had help. You had Diane Hartley, which is basically the same thing. Despite everything, they all laughed. The drive home was quiet. Diane dropped Miranda at a hotel. She and Trevor needed space, they all agreed on that. Then she took Trevor back to his house. The cheese pyramids, Trevor said as they pulled into Diane's driveway. The party. I completely forgot. I'll handle it tomorrow, or today. What time is it? Time to sleep for a year. Diane helped him inside, made sure he had water and aspirin, and tucked him into the guest room like he was 8 years old again. Mom, he called as she was leaving. Yeah? Thank you for believing Miranda, for believing in me, for hitting Ruth with a pipe. That last part was deeply satisfying. I bet. He closed his eyes. Do you think Miranda and I can come back from this? Diane thought about her daughter-in-law, the woman she'd misjudged for 5 years, who'd endured blackmail and fear and loneliness to protect a man she'd been forced to marry. Who'd gathered evidence, contacted the FBI, and staged her own disappearance to keep Trevor safe. I think, Diane said, that you two have a better foundation than most couples. You just need to rebuild it on honesty instead of secrets. That sounds hard. Everything worth doing is hard. Trevor fell asleep before Diane left the room. She went downstairs, looked at the cheese pyramids still arranged on her dining room table, and started laughing, then crying, then laughing and crying simultaneously while eating cheese cubes straight off the toothpicks. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for everything. Tell Trevor I'm staying at the Riverside Hotel, room 412, if he wants to talk. No pressure, just if he's ready. M room 412. The fictional hotel room where Diane had told the fake police that Miranda was having an affair. Diane texted back, "He'll come when he's ready. Give him time. Also, we need to discuss your taste in mother-in-laws. Mine seems to assault people with pipes. Best quality in a mother-in-law. Highly recommend." Diane smiled and put down her phone. Outside, the sun was starting to rise. The anniversary party would never happen. Trevor and Miranda's marriage was in shambles. Ruth was in federal custody, and Diane had committed assault with a rusty pipe. All in all, it had been an eventful day. She picked up another cheese cube and made a decision. Tomorrow, she'd call Carol and suggest they start a new book club, something with fewer murders and more romance, but maybe keep the thriller elements. You never knew when you might need to research criminal enterprises. Chapter 8. 3 weeks later, Diane was reorganizing her spice cabinet when Trevor called to say he and Miranda were getting remarried. I'm sorry, what? Remarried, like a do-over. A wedding that isn't based on blackmail and federal investigations. Trevor, you're not even technically divorced. I know! That's the beauty of it. We're already married, so we're just renewing our vows, restarting, hitting Control-Alt-Delete on the whole thing. Diane sat down heavily on her kitchen stool. Have you two been going to therapy? 3 times a week. Dr. Patterson says we're her most interesting couple. I'm sure you are. Mom, I know this sounds crazy, but I love her, and she loves me. And yes, we started in the worst possible way, but we're choosing to continue in the best possible way. Doesn't that count for something? Diane thought about Miranda, who'd called her twice in the past 3 weeks just to talk, who'd sent flowers with a note that said, "Sorry for the criminal conspiracy," who'd shown up at book club and endured 2 hours of Carol's questions about what it was like to be an FBI informant. It counts for everything, Diane said. When's the wedding? Saturday. Small ceremony. Just immediate family. Well, just you, since Miranda's only family is in federal prison. What about Ruth? Took a plea deal. 20 years. Agent Rebecca said Miranda's testimony sealed it. Good. Diane felt no guilt about this opinion. So you'll come? Maybe not hit anyone with pipes this time? I'll try to restrain myself. Saturday arrived with perfect weather and absolutely no kidnappings, which Diane considered a good omen. The ceremony was held in the small garden behind Trevor and Miranda's house, the same house where Miranda had disappeared 3 weeks ago, which felt both poetic and slightly morbid. Daniel Chen officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. Carol and the book club formed the entire guest list. Diane had made cheese pyramids, but smaller ones, because growth is about progress, not perfection. Miranda wore a simple white dress and no makeup. Trevor wore matching socks. Neither of them could stop smiling. We're gathered here today, Daniel began, clearly enjoying himself, to witness the renewal of vows between 2 people who've already been through more drama than most couples experience in a lifetime. Trevor and Miranda, you've survived blackmail, money laundering, kidnapping, and Diane Hartley with a pipe. If that doesn't prepare you for marriage, nothing will. Everyone laughed, including Diane. Miranda, Daniel continued, do you take Trevor to be your lawfully wedded husband again, this time with full disclosure of all criminal enterprises? I do. And for the record, I'm never working for the FBI again. Trevor, do you take Miranda to be your lawfully wedded wife again, this time actually knowing who you're marrying? I do. And I'm switching careers to something boring, maybe accounting. Your wife is an accountant. Then we'll be boring together." They exchanged new rings, simple bands engraved with "Take Two" on the inside. They kissed. Everyone applauded. Carol cried. Diane ate 3 cheese cubes and felt genuinely happy for the first time in weeks. The reception was small and perfect. Someone had made a playlist that included 0 songs about disappearing or lying or federal investigation. Diane found herself standing next to Miranda near the cheese pyramids. "Thank you," Miranda said quietly, "for giving me a second chance, for not hating me. I hated you for 5 years. I think that's enough for one lifetime." "Fair." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" Diane said. "The journal entry, the last one, where you said I'd know what to do with the drive. How did you know I'd figure it out?" Miranda smiled. "Because you're smart. Smarter than you pretend to be. You've spent 5 years acting like an overbearing mother-in-law, but I saw through it. You were protecting Trevor the only way you knew how. And I knew that if something happened to me, you'd protect him again. By hitting your aunt with a pipe? That was a bonus. But yes, she's your aunt. Don't you feel bad? Ruth made her choices. I made mine. And my choice is Trevor. Is this family? Is starting over with honesty." Miranda looked at Diane seriously. "If you'll have me." Miranda Cole Hartley, you survived federal blackmail, built a case against a criminal organization, staged your own disappearance, and rescued my oblivious son from armed kidnappers. You're stuck with me. They hugged, and this time it felt real. Like family. Like choosing each other instead of being forced together by circumstance. The party continued into the evening. At one point, Agent Rebecca showed up with a bottle of champagne and stories about Morrison's trial, which was apparently going to be spectacular. "He's pleading not guilty," Rebecca said. "Claims he was framed by his employees. Should be entertaining." "Will Miranda have to testify?" Diane asked. "Probably. But with the evidence she gathered, it's a slam dunk. Morrison's going away for a long time." "Good." Diane raised her glass. "To justice. And to marriages that survive federal investigations. I'll drink to that." As the sun set, Diane found herself alone in the garden with Trevor. He looked relaxed for the first time in weeks, the tension finally gone from his shoulders. "I'm quitting Morrison and Gould," he said. Obviously. Starting my own consulting firm, legitimate one. Miranda's going to be my partner. We're calling it Hartley and Hartley." "Not very creative." "We're accountants, Mom. Creativity isn't our strong suit." "Fair point." Trevor looked at her. "You saved my life, you and Miranda. I don't think I've properly thanked you." "You don't need to thank me. I'm your mother. Rescuing you from criminal conspiracies is literally in the job description." "Is it, though?" "It is now." They laughed, and Diane felt something shift, a release of tension she'd been carrying for 5 years. She'd spent so long trying to protect Trevor from Miranda, never realizing that Miranda was trying to protect Trevor from the world. "Mom?" Trevor said. "What you said to the police. About Miranda having an affair at the Riverside Hotel, room 412. That wasn't true, right?" "Of course not. I made it up to buy us time." "But Miranda texted you after everything happened, said she was in room 412, same room number." Diane froze. That's just a coincidence." "Is it? Or did Miranda leave you a clue somehow? Something you didn't consciously remember but your brain held on to?" Diane thought back to that terrible morning, the hidden journal, the frantic search, the lie she'd told the fake police. Had there been something? Some unconscious connection? "You know what?" she said finally. "I have no idea, and I'm going to keep it that way. Some mysteries are better left unsolved." "Fair enough." They stood together watching the party, watching Miranda laugh at something Carol was saying, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Trevor? Yeah? Are you happy?" He thought about it. "Yeah, Mom. Despite everything, or maybe because of everything, I'm happy." "Good. Because I worked very hard to get you here. By hitting people with pipes? Among other things." The party wound down around midnight. Guests left with cheese cubes and stories they'd probably tell for years. Daniel packed up his officiant materials and promised to send Diane a bill she wouldn't be happy about. Carol kissed everyone goodbye and made Diane promise to write a book about this because it's too good not to share. Finally, it was just Diane, Trevor, and Miranda cleaning up in the soft darkness. "We should do this again sometime," Miranda said. "The party, not the kidnapping." "Let's aim for 1 year from now," Diane suggested. "Your actual 6th anniversary. No federal investigations required." "Deal." Diane drove home at 1 a.m., exhausted and content. Her house still smelled like cheese, but in a good way. She checked her phone and found a text from an unknown number. "This is Ruth. I'm not supposed to contact you, but I wanted you to know. I'm glad Miranda found you. She needed a real family. Sorry about everything. Don't visit me in prison." Diane deleted the message without responding. Some relationships weren't worth salvaging. She made tea, sat in her kitchen, and thought about the past 3 weeks. Morrison's arrest had made national news. Trevor and Miranda's involvement had stayed quiet, thanks to Rebecca's intervention. Life was slowly returning to normal, whatever normal meant now. Her phone buzzed again. This time, Miranda. "Thank you for everything. For the party, for believing in us, for being the mother-in-law I chose instead of the one I was assigned. Love you." Diane typed back, "Love you too. No more criminal conspiracies. I'm too old for this. Promise. Although I did join a mystery book club, Miranda. Kidding. Mostly." Diane smiled and put down her phone. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. No gray sedans, no fake police, no conspiracies. Just a regular Tuesday night in the suburbs, where the most dramatic thing happening was Diane Hartley planning next week's book club and maybe, possibly, writing down some of these events before she forgot them. Carol was right. This was too good not to share. She opened her laptop and typed. Chapter 1. Diane Hartley was arranging cheese cubes into a perfect pyramid when her son called to say his wife had vanished. Behind her, the cheese pyramids sat on the counter, slightly melted but still standing. Some things, Diane thought, were worth rebuilding. Cheese pyramids, families, and marriages that started as lies but became truth. She kept writing until dawn.